Will democracy survive the next couple of years?
Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now, in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence, with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome once again to Access to Democracy. And Alan Miller with you. It's not every day that we really get the opportunity to tell an American success story, but we have a return guest with us today, and he is the epitome of the American success story. It's a man who probably 12, 15 years ago wasn't a distiller, and Paul Werni has gone on to, as we will discuss during this interview, great success in New Richmond, Wisconsin, with the 45th Parallel Distillery, which is the purveyor of my favorite 45th Parallel vodka and a lot more. So Paul, welcome back.
Nice to be here.
Why don't you give us a little background about how you got into the distillery business for people who haven't seen our past interviews over a dozen years now?
Well, I had started another business and I had ended that business and I had some time on my hands. I was a stay-at-home dad, and I had read an article about a distiller out in California that was doing some wonderful things. And that's probably what sparked my interest first. And then I heard about some small distilleries in Texas doing well. And so then I had the time to research it. And I found out that that's something that was doable. And fortunately for me, my wife agreed to let me go forward with it.
And well, going forward with it, though, required quite a bit of an educational background. And where did you get that education?
I traveled out east mostly, New Hampshire, Boston, and then eventually to Austria and Germany.
So this was an education that was an international education.
Yeah, because at that time, there weren't, in the United States, they weren't making equipment. You didn't really have a knowledge or anybody teaching anything. In Europe, in Germany and Austria especially, there were a lot of small distilleries and places that you could go learn. And that's why you had to go overseas.
So you came back here and you started looking around. And of course, you live in Minneapolis, or you did at the time anyway. And I guess your first thought was, well, let's set something up in Minnesota. Is that correct?
Well, I grew up in north central Wisconsin. I'm originally from Milwaukee, but I thought about doing it in that where I grew up. But economically, I didn't think it was going to work there. So then living in Minneapolis, I was comfortable in Minneapolis. I had a family there. I started researching Minneapolis and looking for a location there. I actually picked a location, or at least one of two locations. And then when I was dealing with the state government to find out about what the next steps were, that's when I found out that Minnesota had a $30,000 annual permit fee, which was the highest in the nation by a long shot.
Very prohibitive, really, to discourage a new business. I can't think of discouraging it more than hitting them with a tremendous amount of startup money and continuing startup money. And
Yeah, it was an annual fee. And
interesting. So you looked around and you found New Richmond, Wisconsin. Is that correct?
yes, so I started thinking about Western Wisconsin after Minnesota. It wasn't doable. You really could not come up with $30,000 as a startup every year to pay that tax. And that tax really was designed as a prohibitive fee. It really was put in there to keep small distilleries out of Minnesota. But Wisconsin's permit fee was $1,000 a year. And the western side of Wisconsin, that's close to the metropolitan area, New Richmond, St. Croix County, is growing, and there's a lot of investment coming on here. The community in New Richmond was welcoming, and they had a program where we were able to take an acre of land in the city limits for $500, and that's
So
what we
for $1,000 and $500, you had a location and
exactly.
you saved $29,000 on the license fee alone without having to go into fighting for land in Minnesota.
Exactly. And land in Minnesota would have been a lot higher. Even nearby in Hudson, when I looked at Hudson, they wanted $100,000 for that acre. Whereas, like I said, New Richmond, 20 miles away, wanted $500.
Well, a 45th Parallel, which started out as a distillery and is now 45th Parallel Liquors, has really also changed the face of New Richmond, Wisconsin. A lot of other businesses, certainly a brewery, has come in right next to you on an adjoining piece of land. And the whole area has grown tremendously as you have grown. And we're going to talk about that because you started out with just one building and you were making vodka, basically. And where are you today?
Yeah, we started out with 1 acre. We put on a 3,000 square foot facility at that time. And we were the only building in our region. It was just one big field. They put a road in. They said, this is where you're going to go. We put it up. And yes, we were making vodka. When we started our distillery, vodka was the #1 selling spirit in the United States. It outsold everything else combined. And I had the equipment that was capable of making it. We have the grain here that most vodka is made from. And vodka does not need to be aged. It's a little harder to make than other spirits because you have to have reach a purity level that's not required in other spirits. And but once you get to it, you can sell it right away, and then you can have cash flow.
And I don't remember how I discovered 45th Parallel Vodka, but it certainly evoked my curiosity. And interesting, a fact about your vodka is corn-based. And you get it all, the corn, from one particular farm. Is that correct?
Yes, we are. There's a lot of corn in this area. If I were making this vodka in another part of the state, I might have used potatoes. But in this part of the state, there's not a lot of potatoes grown. So we went with corn. It was readily available. And fortunately for us, because corn is very efficient, it's very, you can make ethanol out of it fairly easily. That's why a lot of the ethanol facilities use corn. It's how you distill, how you ferment, and based how you manufacture it is determines whether or not it's going to be an ethanol or for fuel or for drinking. Yes, our grain all comes from one 7th-generation family farm. They're just down the road from us. We needed a consistent crop. When we tried to go to grain elevators, the grain was inconsistent. I complained once to the grain elevator owner, and he told me, he said, "Well, you need to go with one farm if you want consistency." And I asked him, I said, "Who would you recommend?" He gave me only one name, and it wasn't a big farm. It was a small farm, primarily a dairy farm that grew crops for their cattle. They have to grow their own feed, and that's where we started getting our grain.
And that consistency led to really 45th parallel in a couple of years, being entered in some competitions and really blowing away the competition. All of a sudden, some awards started coming your way, and notoriety and write-ups, and this little distillery in New Richmond, Wisconsin was suddenly on the map.
That's true. We were fortunate enough. The Spirit Journal one asked us to send them a bottle. He called me up and said, "Would you send me a bottle for a review?" And I said, "Okay." And they gave us a 5-star rating, and that's rare for them. And then we sent a bottle out to the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and there we achieved double gold, which means that every judge picked it first.
Every judge picked it first.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, I know you now at least 12 years, maybe more. And I watched the process. And one of the things about the process that you have is that you are really a stickler for purity and accuracy. And I think that probably is what made the difference for the very unique taste of 45th Parallel vodka.
Well, what I think you're correct as far as we do everything slow. We use pot stills. Most of the vodka, most of the pure spirits you're going to see out there are coming through continuous columns at 124/7. They're similar to what you find in an ethanol plant. But we went more towards a slower fermentations, cooler fermentations, and slower distillations in pot stills. We do have a column that we have to go through to reach a certain purity level, but it starts in a pot and then it moves into the column.
Now, you had a few pieces of equipment back then. Today, you have equipment that runs actually through 2 buildings. And it's, I don't know, probably 8 times as much as you did then. But vodka is not only what you're selling now. I don't even think it's your biggest seller, certainly manufacturing. So where have you gone?
Because of how we were set up as being a manufacturing facility, using pot stills, and being in an area where corn was predominantly the grain that you were going to use to create alcohol, other companies called us up, reached out to us, and asked us to make bourbon for them. And so in 2009, we did our first batches of bourbon. And that's pretty much what we do right now. We a lot of our expansion, a lot of our stills that we put in recently are designed to really make aged spirits like whiskeys. And now we're 7 days a week, 2 shifts making whiskey.
What happened to my vodka?
We still make vodka. We still do. We're distilling vodka today. But mostly, I would say 90% of our production is some form of whiskey.
And don't leave me now. Well, you also made gin. You also made limoncello. You also made orangecello. You also made several other things. So talk about the variety that you were manufacturing in those earlier days.
Well, if you make vodka, then there's a lot of other things you can make. You can take that spirit and you can infuse it with certain botanicals and distill again. And the most natural, the first one that you're going to try is a gin. And so we do make a gin. And then other companies started asking us to make other things like a horseradish vodka for a Russian outfit. And then aquavits, right? And specifically a dill aquavit, and that's fairly unique. So we produce around 6 different aquavits right now, and those are the things, those unique things like that are what get around the country. I just was sent a picture. I don't even know who sent it to me. They sent me a text, so they have my phone number. And it was a picture of one of our aquavits in a small outfit in the Catskills of New York. And that's that happens to me every once in a while.
Now, the aquavit, for some reason, seems to be more potent than some of the other liquors. Is that a fair statement, or is it just my imagination?
It doesn't have to be. It's very similar to gin. You make it the same way. It's really, I think, a lot of the aquavits that are bottled at higher proof. And so that's why people think, oh, it's really a potent liquor. But it's just bottled at a higher proof than what you might find in vodka, or you might find some of the gins.
Now, getting back to your early licensing days, we made it known through some letters and other communications to the state of Minnesota that their price was prohibitive, and it really was actually the distillers in Minnesota that had insured such a large price for a license. That's changed, hasn't it, as a result of all those complaints?
Yeah, you introduced me to the governor once, Governor Dayton, and then Mayor Rybak once, and they asked me why I wasn't in Minnesota, and I explained to them why. And like the overwhelming majority of people that were out there, even politicians or people in the know, did not know that this fee existed. And once they found out, they were able to remove it. The fee really only lasted about 10 years. It started in 2004 and it ended in 2014. And a lot of that was just why isn't this happening in Minnesota when it's happening in every other state? And then people looked into it.
Well, the distillers in Minnesota were very happy that it wasn't happening. But, when you make noise and you are loud and you call attention to something that's really manifestly unfair, even though politics and bureaucracy works very slowly, it worked.
Yes.
And now there are a lot of breweries and even distilleries in Minnesota, but you are so well entrenched now in Wisconsin that as a Minnesotan, I understand that you're buying a house there.
Yes, we bought some property in Wisconsin, but it's situated in between New Richmond and Stillwater. And one of the reasons that we situated it that way is because we are opening up a small operation in Stillwater. So we will be a Minnesota distillery also.
And your operation in Stillwater, is that a sale operation or is it another distillery?
It is going to be actually another distillery. There's not going to be a lot of production there. The fermentations, the mashing, and first distillations will all happen at our New Richmond facility. But we will have 2 stills over there for finishing and blending. And then we have to bottle everything over there. You cannot ship bottled product from facility to facility. So you can only ship bulk product.
Well, knowing Stillwater, you're probably going to have to sell it more expensively over there. But
well, there's still one law in Minnesota that makes it that you're correct. It will be more expensive because we can only sell 375s over there, and that's a half bottle. So they tend to cost more than a full bottle per ounce.
Now, coming back to New Richmond, talk about what's happened to the facility in New Richmond, because it's not just uh, one small facility now. You have actually expanded, I think, 3 additional times, and your operation there is huge at the moment. And we'll talk about that in a moment, but talk about how that expansion took place.
It happened slowly over the years. We started distilling in 2007, and our first expansion happened in 2012. We pretty much doubled the size of our facility at that time. And then we did it again. We doubled it again in 2015. And then we added a new building in 2018. And last year, our recent expansion, which was our biggest expansion, uh, that is another building, but that is geared towards people coming to our facility and enjoying themselves here and visiting. It's more of an experience for the outsider to come and see what we do.
So you have become, from a small distiller, you have become a tycoon.
I wouldn't say that.
My investment record is terrible. I always get on the wrong horse, and I never got on yours, unfortunately. So you're enjoying it with your family, and I know that they're all participating. I know Tina, your wife, is in there as well as, I think, 1 or 2 of the kids.
Yes, my son, my oldest son works there full time. My daughter works there full time now. She just came back, started working there last month. And my youngest son, who's still in college, he basically works there when he's not going to school. So in summer and then on breaks.
Now, your storage facility in New Richmond is also much huger. You have many, many kegs that are aging, where you just had one small room with a few things that were aging, and the vodka wasn't aging at all. How many kegs do you have aging in this facility at the present time?
Probably around 2,000 barrels are sitting in here right now.
And how long do they have to age?
We don't release anything under 5 years.
So we're all breathlessly awaiting that.
So when we make something, when we start something new, it takes a long time before it actually hits a bottle and gets on a shelf somewhere. We think about it, and then we make it. 6 years will go by before anybody can purchase it.
Now, in your original facility, you had a spot for selling, and you still have that spot, which displays a lot of your bottles. It also displays many, many awards. How many awards have you won for the various products?
I don't really count. It was nice in the beginning to enter products into competitions, but we don't do that as much anymore. We're very selective on the competitions that we enter right now, and we're selective of what we put in there.
You do a lot of boutiques and special orders for particular people that want particular brands, or possibly their own brand that you brew for them. Is that correct?
Yes, we are considered partially a contract distiller. So there are a lot of companies that hire us to make bulk spirits for them. Sometimes we bottle it for them, but most of our biggest customers, we make it in bulk. We fill up barrels for them, then they send over a truck, and then they take the full barrels to their facilities for aging. And that's very common in the industry, in distilling especially. Contract distilling is a big part of the industry, where a lot of brands that you see in the shelves really were made at one facility and purchased by another facility and bottled.
That's also very true in the wine business. I found out on a visit to Napa before it burned down. Uh, anyway, back to New Richmond. You have now a large party room for in the new portion for weddings and festivals and things like that. You also have a very unique and huge circular bar. Tell me about the bar and the reasons for that bar.
Yeah, the credit can't go to me because when I thought of the bar, I was thinking of something square. But a friend of mine who designed the building, he came up with this idea, and he's an artist. It's a circular building, and I mean a circular bar, and the surface of that bar is the 45th parallel around the world. And we had an artist come in here from Madison, Wisconsin, and she spent a couple weeks putting it together, and it is wonderful. It does have the 45th parallel around.
It's very unique, and you can walk all around the bar and you can see what locations are on the 45th parallel from all over really the world, not
Yeah,
just the country. And that adds to the uniqueness. And you have a gallery up above where you can look down on it. And I can't believe we've used up most of our time already. Uh, I think we have to talk about your annual festival because it has become so big that you have to park a mile or two away to get to the 45th Parallel Annual Festival. When's that going to be?
September 25th this year, between noon and 6, and this will be our first open house, or we call it Barrels and Bluegrass. We'll have several bands. We'll have several food trucks. Our kitchen will also have a tent outside. The new space will be open. We expect it to be the biggest one yet.
And your kitchen also, individual kitchen, takes care of the special events, the parties, the weddings, and things like that. Fair to say?
Part of it, we designed the kitchen. We were hoping that it would be a space for caterers to use, but it ended up when we have a large event like a wedding, we tend to encourage the customer or the person that the wedding is for to hire a caterer, because our kitchen has become actually fairly popular, and it's almost overwhelmed with our regular customers in our bar area and our restaurant area, that it's very difficult for it to handle both an event and our regular customers.
Well, Paul, congratulations again. It's been great speaking to you. It's also been great watching your growth and your success. We've been talking with Paul Werni, 45th Parallel Liquors, used to be the distillery, but now it's 45th Parallel Liquors in New Richmond, Wisconsin. And look it up. By all means, it's not that far away from Eagan or the Twin Cities. And on September 25th, you'll find us there along with thousands of other people enjoying the wonderful, wonderful event and the bands and the food. Paul, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.